Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Daily Covfefe with Carter and Keri. Today is Thursday, June 6th. Actually, good morning to everyone except for Vox and YouTube. How's everyone else doing? By the way,
Voxadpocalypse. This is why we have a merch store in the works, semi up, and Subscribestar, and this is why our plan was never to support ourselves through monetization on YouTube. And I thought we'd have longer, but
yeah. I mean,
tell people what's going on just in case people aren't paying attention.
Oh yeah, if you guys are real normal people with real lives.
Yeah.
Voxadpocalypse is what they're calling it. Essentially, there's a journalist on Vox, which is a left-wing mainstream media, but SJW site. And it's been I don't know if people know this, but it was infused with over $380 million in cash to get it going. And most of that from NBC. So this is supported by a huge media company. And still they have pretty much like a dismal audience, even with all that cash to spend. One of their journalists, this guy, Carlos Maza, who is more accurately described as an activist. He used to work for Media Matters. And now he's at Vox doing the same thing he did at Media Matters, which was activism disguised as journalism. This guy went on a campaign of targeted harassment. Those words they mean something. He targeted Steven Crowder, a conservative comedian, on YouTube and on CRTV, which is now The Blaze. But yeah, he targeted him. He was asking his supporters to try and get him banned from YouTube and Twitter. He did so. His argument was that he has been the victim of a campaign of harassment by Steven Crowder for years, a campaign of gay bashing and homophobia. So what's actually happened, if you look into it, my suspicion is that it's pretty obvious. He's just pissed because he makes terrible videos. He makes terrible content. And he's an easy mark for someone who's smart and funny to tear apart. And so Steven Crowder regularly eviscerates his videos, and really in a quite funny way. But he can't say, hey, I feel oppressed because I'm terrible at making arguments and this person destroys them. So instead, he says, this guy's being homophobic because he calls me a queer and he calls me, these names, by the way, that he calls himself. His handle on Twitter is gay wonk.
Right.
So he launched this campaign of targeted harassment by saying he had been harassed, which is hilarious.
Just to be clear, during his mocking, Steven Crowder, part of his mocking is like making fun of his appearance, making fun of and he mentions his race and his sexual status, right? He mentions like gay Latino. He mentions it, right? But
he mentions
in a similar way that like Jon Stewart or John Oliver would mention it if they were mocking like Trump and his orange hair and blah blah blah, like making fun of someone. He mocks it in that context while eviscerating his video for ideological reasons.
Totally. And by the way, Crowder does that a lot because he's making fun of the fact. I mean, he calls his the people who work in his show, his lawyer is called Half Asian Lawyer, because he's half. He makes fun of the way the left always, and Quarter Black Garrett, right? He makes fun of the way that the left is always highlighting identity. That's him making fun of the identity being important.
Right.
But you're right in that talk show hosts, comedians on the left can make fun of people for being white, for being male, for being any number of identities, as long as they're not a marginalized identity. So it's a total double standard. But anyway, this guy, Maza, he threw a big stink. Another thing about this guy, which is, I think, very important, he actually has called for violence against conservatives. Crowder's never done anything like that.
Right.
Alex Jones, I was just arguing with some idiot on social media who was saying Alex Jones was banned because he incited violence. I'm like, incitement is a legal term. It means something. Who did he say, like, go attack those people? When did he say that? He never said that. This guy, Carlos Maza, the Vox guy, he tweeted, and the tweet is still up, telling people to go and throw milkshakes at conservatives. That's
Right.
physical violence. That's attacking people. That's actual incitement, and that's fine. Another thing he did in his bio on Twitter, he calls himself he calls himself he is a Marxist, I guess, but he says Tucker Carlson is a white supremacist. That's in his bio.
Right.
That's defamation. You can call someone a white supremacist when they're not, and that's cool. But someone makes jokes about you being queer and you are queer and you make the same jokes and that's not cool. Like the whole thing. Anyway, to get beyond that.
By the way, can I interrupt really quickly?
Yeah.
To ask our audience a question. Should I make this t-shirt? Because I kind of want to. I'm not totally sure. Tell us if you want me to make this t-shirt. Sorry for derailing. Continue.
Oh no. Okay. So the story. Yeah. So YouTube responded and said they would not be pulling down Crowder's videos, which is a small victory, but they're going to eventually. This is how this works. So they're not going to pull down the videos. Maza threw a stink and was like, YouTube doesn't care about protecting LGBT people. Mind you, this is a guy who celebrated Milo being deplatformed and posted deplatforming works. We should do more of it. He doesn't care about LGBT creators. He just cares about himself and punishing someone who makes him look stupid because he's stupid.
He cares about the ideology and he's embarrassed.
Yeah, he cares about his ideology and he's embarrassed. That's it. So he throws a big fit and then YouTube responds a second time and says, I'm not sure if they responded or if they just did it. They demonetized all of Steven Crowder's. His entire channel has been demonetized. So in addition, they rolled out this new terms of service hate speech policy, which is super vague. More vague. Every time they redo it, it's even more vague. And now it's like, you don't even have to violate these rules. Just if you brush up against them, we might decide to ban you or to demonetize you. What does that even mean? Nobody can actually say what the rules are anymore. How are you supposed to follow rules that you can't?
They even explicitly in the new rules, they say like marginal content, like edge I forget the word they use, but like stuff that's like potentially could violate the rules, like on the edge, that's banned. Which is, how do you, what does that even mean? It's like, here's the line, which is vague already. And if you come anywhere near the line, we could also. So it's like, this is just, there's no line. There's no
line.
Yeah.
It's indiscriminately, they can just whatever. And they also, in the same release, they said they're going to start promoting authoritative content, meaning they're going to, we talked about this yesterday or the day before about, when YouTube started having like tastemakers who would push stuff instead of the stuff that naturally rises to the top. So they're going to be doing more of that. They're going to be promoting more mainstream corporate media. Corporate media is going to be pushed up to the top by YouTube. Vox is going to be pushed up to the top by YouTube because $380 million isn't enough to get them viewers that they need. This is I saw somebody state it this way. This is a war between legacy and corporate media and new media. And because what they did with Crowder's probably going to be fine. He created something that's popular enough that he got a platform outside of YouTube. He's on Blaze TV. He has Mug Club. He was smart. He had something other than YouTube revenue coming in. He, last I heard, if he takes down one of his offensive comedy shirts, then they might reinstate his monetization. Who knows? But there's a ton of smaller content creators who got hit in this stage of the war. So the Purge is rolling on. There's a whole list of them. We can put the ones I know of in the comments. I was just compiling some of them last night. Sinatra says,
Mikey was one among them who has a very small nascent YouTube channel, right?
Well, I was pissed off last night. And then, this morning just found out Mike Harlow, Mikey the Harlow, very dear friend.
By the way, right?
Who we've had on the show. Very dear friend. His channel had just been monetized. He was very excited about it. Again, LGBT, tell me how you're protecting people by censoring him, by demonetizing, by punishing him. So I didn't even know about him last night. He's been added. It's a whole bunch of people. The ones I know of that people might recognize are Sinatra Says, Revenge of the Sis. There's a couple of different journalists. Oh, and Maza this morning is like advocating on behalf of one of the journalists who got deplatformed because of him. And he's like, oh, but he shouldn't have been caught in the net with white supremacists. How did this happen? And I'm like, maybe because people like you have have diluted the word white supremacist to where it means nothing. Because you use it, you call people like Tucker Carlson and just average conservatives white supremacists, and then you're like, how did we catch all these other people in the white supremacist net? Like, I'm sorry, I'm really upset. I'm going to stop talking and let you say something. I just before I woke up this morning.
Going, it's fun to listen to you rant.
I woke up this morning and I was like, I don't want to be as angry as I was last night. And then I was already angry just on behalf of these other people, and because this is wrong. This is morally and ethically wrong. And then I saw Mikey had been hit too. And so that just obviously personally makes me more upset. But it is arguing with liberals about this. There are leftists who I've been arguing with. These are the things they're saying. Hey, let's not conflate free speech with the freedom to be able to monetize your YouTube channel. This is censorship, okay? Like, I'm against censorship when it's censorship by the government and when it's censorship by a huge social media company, like the media companies that control our public square. It's still censorship. They're choosing to censor people in 3 ways right now. They've completely pulled some channels off. For other people, they've pulled some videos down. They've, like Gavin McInnes and Owen Benjamin, a couple of others, I know they've pulled individual videos down. And then others like Mikey, they've demonetized. Demonetizing is absolutely a form of censorship.
Well, and also not recommending, like pulling them out of recommendation engines is a 4th form.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Yes. So they're not allowing them to be recommended. They're not allowing the algorithms to work. They're not allowing what's popular to actually rise to the top. And they're putting pressure on. When you take away somebody's, some people make a living off of this. It's alternative media. They have just as much a right to make a living off of it as Carlos Maza does, getting propped up by some NBC infusion dollars. These people have created their audience. They're making money from their audience, and you're saying they can't make money from their audience anymore? That's putting the hammer down on them so that they have no incentive to stay on the platform, and so they'll shut themselves up. That's still a form of censorship, and I do not support that, and I can't stand that there are people on my side who are cool with this. Like, where the liberals... We used to be about free speech.
Well, I mean, yeah, liberals have been, a classical liberal is a libertarian, but that's a separate issue. The word liberal has been morphed slowly over time. Like, classically, liberals were libertarian. And then the word liberal just slowly started being infected with Marxist cancer. And now it's just full on totalitarian Marxist is a liberal, quote, liberal. It's interesting. You see the YouTube. It's interesting to think about how YouTube started, right? So the internet was a threat to legacy media. YouTube came along as not part of the old boys club, not part of the legacy media, and these are nerds from Silicon Valley, right? So YouTube came along, and a bunch of people put up cat videos and other stupid things, and legacy media didn't pay attention to it. That's the stupid YouTube thing, right? Dump a bunch of cat videos and makeup videos. And eventually, people started going to YouTube more than they were going to legacy media. Like, it started a larger and larger market share. Larger and larger, larger and larger. And YouTube's algorithms. So this guy, by the way, one of the things he does is he claims that YouTube's algorithms inherently bias, they're biased towards hate speech. And the reason he thinks that is because they are biased towards popular content, and his definition of hate speech includes a lot of stuff that people like. So that bubbles to the top. And so, this happened, and legacy media kind of was late to the game and realized, oh crap, we need to kind of be on YouTube and be here. We're getting our viewership is deteriorating, and it's moving over to YouTube. So legacy media jumped in, but now YouTube has chosen a side. So YouTube came from the independent, small guy kind of cat video culture. YouTube grew up, was acquired by Google, became a very large company, became part of a very large company, and now they've had to make a choice. Are we about independent creators? And are we about going against kind of the mainstream legacy media? And are we an alternate platform to mainstream legacy media? Or are we a distribution channel for mainstream legacy media with some decoration on the side? And they've chosen the latter. They've chosen to be a distribution platform for old school legacy media with some decoration of cat videos on the side. But they do not want anything that competes with mainstream legacy media. And so YouTube has chosen a side in this. And it's interesting just for me to think about the history of YouTube and how it started. It started as exactly what their legacy media is worried about. It started about as an alternative platform for people to connect directly with each other and bypass the tastemakers of legacy media. And YouTube is not that anymore. YouTube has decided to, work for the empire.
Yeah, they're working for the empire. And somebody made the point, and this is a great point, that because this is about legacy media versus new media, Vox is legacy media, NBC. They depend on advertisers. YouTube depends on advertisers. They basically have put all this pressure on YouTube to pull monetization from content creators, from new media.
Just
and
take ad money from their competitors.
Yes, they're taking ad money from their competitors, and YouTube is letting them do it. YouTube is like, okay, we'll bend over for you. And I just...
yeah, of course that's what they're doing. I mean, they're not dumb. Yeah.
No, but they're why they're not, who's not dumb?
Legacy media, they know what they're doing.
No, but YouTube, why is YouTube? Because they're in the pocket of Google. I mean, but why? Why is YouTube bending over?
Well, because YouTube has sided with, ideologically, YouTube has sided with legacy media.
Yeah.
YouTube doesn't like what's popular. Right? YouTube was like, we're a platform where anything that's popular can rise to the top. Oh, that rose to the top? Never mind. We're not that anymore. That's what's happened. And YouTube is part of the Google machine. I have some notes that I took about this whole thing.
Yes.
Now a good time for me I don't know how this is going to go. It's almost like a rant that's planned. So I don't know, maybe that will lose some excitement. I do want to point out first, though, that everything I'm saying, and I don't want to apply this to you, Keri, but I think it applies to you. I do think private companies have a right to control. Like, I'm not arguing that this is government censorship. I'm arguing that this is a private company censoring. I do think that it's a violation of I do think it's fraud because they lured people like Crowder and everyone and Mikey onto the platform under false pretenses. So I do think that there's potentially legal action that can be taken, but I do think private companies have a right to control what's on their platform. I'm not arguing that they don't.
I agree. But it's morally and ethically wrong. And people have a requirement, I feel, a responsibility to speak up when something is morally wrong. And the left seems to have forgotten that. They equate it with, they only speak up if they want the government to step in and do something. And otherwise it's fine. But
it's not morally wrong if you're honest about what you're doing. So if YouTube said from the beginning, yeah, we're a platform so that CNN can get their videos boosted, and if you compete with them, we'll demonetize you, but you can put cat videos up. If that's what YouTube said, that would be fine, right? But that's not what they said. They lured people under false pretenses. So it's as if you purchased something and then when it was shipped to you, it was an empty box, or it was poison, or it was the opposite of what you purchased. That's what YouTube is doing. And so
they're not just changing. They didn't just lure people and then change the rules and say, this is what we're going to do going forward. Like they didn't just lure people and allow them to spend years and effort creating content for them and then change the rules and say, this is what we're doing going forward. They changed the rules and are retroactively applying them.
Right.
Which is like, I saw somebody make this analogy. Forgive me, I don't remember who it was, but they're like, it's like if I change the speed limit today to 50 and then go back for the past 5 years and arrest everyone who did over 50 previously. Like it's just messed up. And so, okay, I'm gonna calm down.
So I have I thought about this a little bit, and So the Andrew Breitbart, people talk about the Andrew Breitbart phrase, which is that politics is downstream from culture, right? Now, I've extended it and said culture is downstream from philosophy. And I don't know if I invented that, but probably not. I probably got it from somewhere. I'm not taking credit. I'm just saying, culture is downstream from philosophy. And I'm going to say that as a backdrop to what I'm about to say here. Is YouTube to blame? Yeah, kind of. But YouTube's not the only person / entity, company to blame here. This is not entirely YouTube's fault. YouTube and its advertisers are responding to culture, right? We are in a culture where this is the proper response. And yeah, there's ideologues at YouTube. I get that. But why are there ideologues at YouTube? Why do they have so much power? Why do they get away with this? Why does this work? And that's an important question to ask. And the answer, I think, is quite uncomfortable for a lot of people. The answer is it's not just YouTube's fault. It's our fault. It's regular people's fault. It is our fault. And I want to just talk about what I mean by that for a minute. We have built a culture with a bunch of attributes that are inimical to a free, individualistic, kind of traditionally American culture that would support free speech and oppose this kind of stuff. So we have a culture that's grown very conflict avoidant, right? We have a culture that's centered around not causing offense to anyone, quote, worshiping the victim's feelings. It's victim worship culture. And we ostracize anyone who a victim claims so-and-so hurt my feelings. That person gets ostracized. We worship victims, and we worship the fragility of people's feelings in this culture. We also have no understanding of the importance of philosophy generally, and that's partly because it was it was intentionally discredited by people who don't want us to pay attention to it because they needed to destroy the culture, and culture's downstream from philosophy. So we needed to be ignoring philosophy for decades, which we have been. And they discredited, I've talked about this before, they discredited the field of philosophy by making it ridiculous. So that philosophers were contemplating, the existence of their hand while high, and everyone laughed at that and thought that's stupid, it's impractical, it doesn't matter, who cares about philosophy? So we ignored it. But philosophy matters, and it infected universities, first in the philosophy departments and then in humanities, and it's spread into culture, and it's in journalism, and it's in Hollywood. Bad philosophy. And we've also lost sight of, or I'll say they've been replaced, the actual reasons for the relative success and freedom of America versus the rest of the world, or most of the rest of the world. The actual reasons, which are philosophical, grounded in philosophy, those reasons have been replaced by a bunch of platitudes. They've been replaced by the words democracy, or we've been told that what makes America great is multiculturalism and the immigration. That's what makes America special. Or the fact that we care about, like other countries don't care about people, right? The fact that we care, or, Americans are hard workers, or whatever it is, the platitude of the day. That's all been given to us as a replacement for what the actual foundations of the country were, which was the culmination of Enlightenment philosophy based on individual rights. Like, that's what made America special. But that's been lost, and it's been replaced by all these platitudes. And when you lose sight of all this, when philosophy is thrown away as if it's, you throw out the baby with the bathwater, because there's some stupid existentialist getting high contemplating the ceiling's existence or whatever, when you throw that all away, you get left with pragmatism. And we have a culture that thinks pragmatism is pragmatic, which it's not, which I know sounds like a contradiction, but pragmatism doesn't work. And I can talk about that in a minute. But so the result is we're living in a culture with no will, no spine, no tools to defend the foundations of that culture. right? We are, we're hollowed out as a culture. We thought for decades, people who wanted to defend America thought that the way to defend it was to go fight communism in Vietnam or Korea, or maybe go bomb the Middle East somewhere. But the real way to defend America and America's values was both much easier and much harder in many ways. It was easier because to do it the right way, because you didn't have to risk death. There was no reason to go risk death in the Vietnamese jungle. But it's a lot harder because you were going to risk ostracism, and no one wanted to risk ostracism. No one wants to be ostracized from friends and family and loved ones. And so that's why I'm going to bring this back to like why I think we're to blame. The culture that we live in, our country's culture, there's nothing magical about it. It's just a sum total of the culture that each and every one of us manifests in our own lives. That's what that is. The culture there's easy stuff that we manifest, like how we teach our kids, what we watch, how we vote with our dollars and our time. So great example is how many people have been donating to universities. That money is not helping. You donate out of an irrational, tribalistic allegiance to a sports team half the time, or because you have some nostalgic feeling about the time that you were at the university. That money is spent destroying our culture. It's spent propping up universities that push vile, hateful ideology. That's what your money is being spent for. So there's easy stuff you can do, which is stop doing those things. But then there's the harder stuff. And I think more important, I think it's critical.
I'm going to interrupt you. I know you're going to roll. But by the way, if you do that, stop giving money to your colleges that you went to. Let them know why.
Of course.
Tell them why you're withdrawing the money.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important. Frankly, I just want colleges to collapse. So I don't really care if they know why they've collapsed, but they'll figure it out. But the harder stuff, and I think the stuff that's more critical is what we let our friends, our loved ones, our families, our coworkers, people in our communities get away with ideologically, right? What ideas do we tacitly endorse because we're too afraid to speak up? Keri had a great example. Keri, the other day you had a great example of this. Someone came in to the place you were working, and they made some comment about it's too white here or something, and you called them out on it. You did it in a playful way, but you didn't let them get away with it. And just to remind people, do you want to quickly tell what happened on that story? Because I know I'm on a rant, but let's.
I think he was saying, yeah, he said this thing the way people do, where it's cool to just be against certain, like against men or whatever, against white people. He was like, yeah, I would move here, but it's too white, if you know what I mean. And I was like, oh, so you're racist, and just kept like talking, but it was in a funny way where he'd like took him aback. Yeah. And he was like, what? No, it's just, and then he started trying to defend it. And I was still like, no, I think it's pretty racist. Yeah. So it's cool. It's cool that you admit it.
Right. So, I mean, that's a great example of like most people would let that slide. And some of the things that I just thought about at the top of my head before this show, things that we've let slide. The entire concept of hate speech is corrupt from its very foundation. The idea that hate is bad is corrupt. Hate is simply an emotion. Hating things for valid reasons is completely moral. So let's just use a Christian example. Hate the devil, Christians. You're supposed to hate the devil. You're not supposed to not have hate in your heart. You're supposed to hate evil. That's part of justice, is hating evil. If you're like me and you're not Christian and you're an atheist, you're supposed to hate evil nonetheless. You're supposed to hate, for example, Nazis. It's okay to hate Nazis. It's not okay to run around the street punching them or throwing milkshakes at them or whatever, but it's okay to hate them. And hate speech is this term that is intentionally vague, and it packages together stuff that doesn't belong together. So hating someone because of the color of their skin is obviously racist, but hating someone for their beliefs, or hating their beliefs and saying like, I hate these beliefs, these are horrible beliefs. Example being Islam, right? You could say, I hate Islam. Islam's a horrible belief system. Well, that's interpreted as hate speech because Muslims believe Islam and you're not supposed to judge other people's belief systems. That's all that is crap philosophy. Of course you're supposed to judge other people's belief systems. What do you think affects their behavior? Their belief systems. Belief systems are critical, right? We have this whole, even embedded this, like decades ago, this bothered me. I think literally 20 years ago, I said something about this. We package up, you'll be familiar with this phrase. We don't discriminate against color, creed, like they'll say like race or religion or sex or blah, 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 right? And they list all these things together. And you nod your head because you hear some of those and you go, well, yes, we shouldn't treat people differently because of their gender or because of their color of their skin. Yes, nod, nod, nod. Mm-hmm. Creed, religion, those are belief systems. It's completely valid to treat people differently because of their belief systems. Belief systems are chosen. Belief systems are the chosen rules by which those people will behave. Belief systems don't belong in that list, but they're in the list and we let them get away with it because we were afraid of being called racist or sexist if we mentioned that, hey, that list is a little bit wonky. That list is wonky. That doesn't belong in that list. There's nothing wrong with treating people differently because of ideology. Ideology is how they act. Ideology is what drives them. Another example, we've accepted this idea well before toxic masculinity arguments or ads by Gillette. We accepted the idea that men are bad. Watch old television shows. Watch Leave It to Beaver. Watch Donna Reed, right? Are they corny? Yes. Are they based on, what someone would say, like a, patriarchal view or whatever, mom stays home? Yeah, sure. I get it. That's true. But the dads in those shows, we went to dad for advice. We relied on dad. Dad was a good guy. He was a pillar of the community. He wasn't a joke. He wasn't a thing to be mocked. What happened in television since then? Name a TV show with an admirable father figure, right? Married with Children, and probably before then, but like Married with Children is kind of the iconic example. Oh, or Homer Simpson. Dads are drunk idiots who you can ignore, and they're fools, right? And the women are the ones with sense, and only the moms. Well, don't worry, I'll manage the child of man that's living in my house who's drunk all the time. He's just an idiot. And that's everywhere. It's in movies, it's in commercials, it's in television. It's been in television, movies, and commercials for decades. What did we do? You probably said nothing about it. Nothing at all. You never said anything about it. You didn't defend men at all. You just shut up and took it. Multiculturalism was another package deal where we say, oh, multiculturalism, diversity is very important. And we nod our heads and say, well, yeah, I want different kinds of food and different art and different music. That is great. It does make our culture more vibrant. What about different moral beliefs? Are they equivalent? No, they're not equivalent. Is I don't know, falafel equivalent to pizza? I don't know. Sure, they're two different foods. It doesn't matter. It's not morally significant. Multicultural that up all you want. Woohoo. Enjoy your smorgasbord. Great. Is killing people for being gay equivalent to gay, like allowing gay marriage? No. Those are two morally different positions. Ideologies clash. Moral relativism is a license to let evil run roughshod over good. Moral relativism is horrible, but that's packaged up as part of multiculturalism. So you're not allowed to speak ill of anyone from another culture, even if you're talking about their beliefs. Even if you're talking about their beliefs. Should you say nasty things about things that aren't important, like the color of their skin or, the food that they eat? No, those things don't matter. But you should be able to criticize their beliefs, and you don't. And you stay quiet because you're worried about being called a racist. We've accepted unearned guilt. Slavery is the obvious example. We have this idea that like, oh, my skin's white, I guess I'm responsible for slavery. 4% of the fucking population of whites in America owned slaves. 4%. 4%. You are not descended from a slave owner. And even if you were, you're not a slave owner. You're not guilty. Not to mention the fact that slavery has been practiced throughout history by people of all colors. The Muslim slave trade was what, 3 times as big as the European slave trade? I mean, like, black people have been practicing slavery too. It's bad when anyone does it. It doesn't make you guilty. Your happiness doesn't make you guilty. Because people are dying and suffering somewhere else, you might feel bad for them. You might want to be charitable, and those are admirable feelings. And it will be admirable for you to help them. Feeling guilty doesn't help anyone. It's not your fault. Your success doesn't come at the expense of someone else. You know, there's not a child starving in Nigeria because you ate McDonald's today. That's not how that works. They're starving in Nigeria because they don't have capitalism. That's why they're starving. I don't know if they're starving in Nigeria. I'm just picking on a random country.
It triggered me, though.
Good. Maybe they're not. Ethiopia was the thing in the 80s. Everyone mentioned Ethiopia. I just wanted to pick a different African country because Ethiopia is cliche. The last thing I want to say, I'll wrap up here. The last thing I want to say about this is this is a message to men. And I get that I'm not being a collectivist here. I get that there's a distribution curve. I'm speaking to men generally. Not all men are the same. Not all women are the same. I'm going to speak in generalizations. Get over it. Learn statistics learn statistics and you won't be triggered. Men, we naturally tend to be the sex that our species relies on to face conflict when necessary. That's part of having testosterone, right? It means we're less conflict. We should be less conflict avoidant, a little more reckless, right? Which is sometimes bad, right? That's why we're sent off from the tribe to go fight wars and hunt. That's part of masculinity. It's a little bit more reckless. It's a little bit more okay with conflict. That's fine. It's why when you have kids and you spend time around kids, your testosterone levels go down. Because we don't want reckless anger, conflict with babies. That's a recipe for death. So women, naturally, on average, you kept the social harmony more. You're more avoidant of conflict because staying back in camp where you've got a coalition of a bunch of other people all having to live in close proximity, well, having conflict is probably not a recipe for harmony and success in the tribe. We need both. Both go together. By the way, Keri, this morning, actually, before the show, you said, I don't think I'm divulging too much. If I am, we can cut this out. You said a little prayer, like, God, help me to say only the words you want. And it was funny because I had already been thinking about this about women, but one of the things you're saying was, oh, I don't want to be vengeful, and I was thinking, like, why not? Why not be fucking vengeful? Why is that bad? Right?
No, because
I don't want to be confrontational and angry and vengeful. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want to be those things, right? So just you made it was a great example for me as I was thinking about the show. So look, that said, so this is, men tend to be more willing to face conflict, but for a lot of guys, there's nothing scarier than being rejected by women. And that makes sense biologically. Like, you don't get to procreate if you get rejected by the tribe of women, right? You need their approval, I guess, unless you're a rapist. So evil men don't have a problem, I guess, getting rejected by women because they're just going to rape. But good men, it's scary to be rejected by women, and I get that. But I think what we did, most men, we were afraid of being confrontational. We were afraid of women calling us jerks or assholes or saying that we were toxic or undateable. We were afraid of being ostracized socially. So we did not fight when men were being fun of. We shut up. We when there are real threats to Western civilization, we shut up. We refuse to fight the culture war in our own lives. It was actually easier for many of us. I didn't do this, so I'm not, claiming that I did this. But it's easier for many of us to go to Iraq and bomb people than it is to tell their girlfriend that you don't believe in rape culture. Like a lot of guys would be like, do you want to like have a confrontation with your wife or girlfriend about toxic ideology that she accepts, like rape culture? Or do you want another tour over in Iraq? I bet a lot of guys would be like, I'll take the tour. Can we just have harmony at home? I'll go out with my buddies and shoot some stuff. I'm not saying that's easy. I mean, that's threatens your life. So I'm not saying it's easy to make that decision, but I think a lot of people are so scared of standing up in their own lives to people around them that they choose what they think is the pragmatic approach, which is, and by the way, it's condescending to women also to think that your wife or girlfriend can't have a rational discussion with you. You can't confront her, and that her anger is somehow like the end of the conversation. It shouldn't be. That view of women is a view of women as irrational. The idea that they're going to get angry and then there's no, you might as well just not have the conversation because their anger is the end of the conversation. That's not true for rational women. There are rational women. Many women, there are rational guys. So you can confront them. You can have conversation with them, but we chose pragmatism. And pragmatism works in the short term. It keeps you from getting ostracized. It keeps your wife and your girlfriend happy with you because you didn't say anything that was upsetting or offensive. And, the moms at PTA didn't go, can you believe her husband said that? That didn't happen. So she gets to keep her little community. You don't rock the boat. That's fine. Pragmatism works in the short term. In the long term, it seeds ground to evil ideology. In the long term, pragmatism seeds that ground, and we lose as a society. We lose. And now here we are. We're in a culture that's impotent to defend Western's values. We've rotted from within because we let it rot. And if we don't police our own social circles, your friends, your family, your colleagues, if you don't speak up in your social circles, then authoritarians will police our social circles for us. And they'll start with things like YouTube. That's the end of my rant.
It was a wonderful rant. I loved it. It's I don't even know how to follow that. I have a couple things to say. Women are more susceptible to this ideology because women are not targeted by it the way men are. Okay? Like women are not in this ideology, this belief system, women are not the oppressor, they're the oppressed. So they're more susceptible to it because they're not being told that they're an enemy because of their sex.
Right.
Men are more likely to question it. You would question it too if you're being told that your race and your sex and your sexuality and everything about you makes you the bad guy. But so yeah, women are more susceptible to it. And there's a saying I've heard that says, when women go bad, men go right after.
Yes. Yes.
No, yeah. When women go wrong, men go right after. It's one thing. It's a little thing to concede something with your partner. When at the first time when they're talking about something that is you maybe don't agree with, but you don't want to get, like you said, you don't want to get into the argument, so you let it go. But the more you do that, the more you let this ideology spread, not just in your relationship, but yeah, like you said, in your community. And people have to get over being afraid of confronting it. We know people who their relationships have been ruined by this, by one partner or the other becoming completely indoctrinated.
Good. I mean, if it ruins your relationship, you shouldn't be in that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's true. I don't know where to start because I had a lot of notes. Where can you go back point by point?
Yeah. And now we have the 3-hour kofefi.
Yeah. Let me see.
Can I say something really quickly?
Yeah.
I'm also guilty of some of this. I'm not only yelling at other guys. I realized this the other day. I have a shirt with Che Guevara's face on it with a line through it, like a circle and line, like no Che Guevara.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually wear it around the house. And my daughter, there were 8 girls, 8 10-year-old girls in the house the other day for a party. And I had this shirt on and I was thinking, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have this shirt on because I'm in the Bay Area and I know a lot of these parents are social justice-y and I don't want to, I don't want people asking questions. And I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? Like, it's my house. Like,
and they wouldn't care about wearing a shirt that's promoting Che Guevara in front of
no, it has a line through them.
No, I'm saying the opposite's true.
Oh,
they wouldn't worry about wearing a shirt that's positive about Che.
Right. Well, I wore the shirt and oddly enough, one of the girls said something about it because she's seen the shirts without the line through it. And she was like, what's that mean? And so I had a conversation with her about, and it opened a dialogue. I was like, well, here are the things that he did. He hated other races and murdered them. He hated gay people and murdered them. He was called the Butcher of La Cabana. Like these they called Che in when they wanted to murder people because like he was the guy who loved murdering people. Here's what he was fighting for. Here's how he fought. And her reaction was, well, why do people wear a shirt with his face on it? And I didn't want to get into a big discussion because it was a 10-year-old girl and it was, not the right context, but I said, they don't read.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I'll read. I'm going to read. I read a lot. I like reading. Blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay, great. And that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
But the point is, what a pussy for me to be afraid to even put that fucking shirt on in my own goddamn house with a bunch of kids. And I realized when I was being a pussy that's why I wore it, because I realized I was being a pussy. Right? But
yeah,
little things like that happen, I think, to all of us all the time. We have these there's a little bit of resistance, and we're like, I don't know if I want to create the awkward social situation. It's my responsibility to smooth things over. It is not your responsibility to smooth things over. It's your responsibility to speak the truth. That's your responsibility. And I'm speaking especially to men. It's your responsibility to speak the fucking truth. That's your responsibility, not to smooth things over, not to feel good.
I like this rant. By the way, women don't, we talked about this a bit before the time we were on Gracie's. Was it Gracie we were talking to? Women don't want a man who is a coward. So Ironically, yes. Imagine that. They don't want one, no matter what they tell you. A woman who dominates you and controls you and has you fearful for speaking your opinion, even if it's in disagreement with her, which everyone's going to disagree on things from time to time. Especially with your partner, you should be free to disagree because that's how you guys grow together. And so if you're with someone who is dominating you, it's not a good situation. I'll put it that way. But you might find out that she doesn't like dominating you and that she's dominating
you. Ask her boyfriend how he handles the situation.
Right. But I'm saying that a lot of times that dynamic is messed up because you're both doing something wrong. She's dominating and you're letting her.
Right. Well, this is why this ideology has been bad for women as well, because it's been telling women that these traits that are inherently male are toxic and bad and women should avoid them, and that men are broken women. Men are men are broken women. They're women with problems. Yeah. And when women go and seek that out, when they seek men who agree with that ideology, they end up getting men who are pathetic soy boys, and that's not hot.
Yeah, and they resent them for it. They dominate them, but they resent them for it.
Yeah.
It's like, I've run into couples like this, where it's just like, wow, you guys have like miserable together, but somehow I guess it works because you like being abused and you like abusing. It's like, it's weird. And by the way, I'm not talking about, just to be clear, I don't believe men should dominate women in any kind of violent or aggressive way, or any kind of tyrannical way or authoritarian way. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that men seem to be, in this day and age, more susceptible to letting women do that to them, and feeling like they deserve it or something because they've bought into this stuff about masculinity. I don't know. It's a weird phenomenon. We're getting way off the
conversation about this.
Yeah. So I want to take it back to the stuff, because I am really pissed about this. And people, here's some of the arguments I've seen online, which are, if anyone's making these arguments to you, like, confront them about it. There are people who are saying that they're only targeting the people who are creating more mass shooters. Absolutely bald-faced lie. The reason they're saying that is because they don't know who's on the list. First of all, these are people who they're in an echo chamber on the left. So they hear people are being censored on YouTube. Well, they must have done something to deserve it. And they must be an alt-right Nazi boogeyman, like I've heard about, and they were okay when Alex Jones was censored. And if you guys will remember, there were people back then saying, this is just the first step. This is not going to stop with Alex Jones. And guess what? We were right. And it's not going to stop here either. They're going to keep pushing the needle. And what they rely on is for people not to react, because you've become desensitized to it. If they went after everyone back then, they would get a huge reaction, but they didn't. You boil a frog slowly. So they start with someone easy like Alex Jones, because the mainstream narrative is such that you can attack him easily and not have most people care. Most people don't really, liberals didn't really care about it. A lot of conservatives didn't care about it because it's Alex Jones. And because a lot of times people have an inability to see beyond the tree. They can't see the forest for the trees. So they see a big Alex Jones shaped tree and they can't see this forest behind it that's coming. That, like, this is about the principle of whether it's okay to censor people or not, because you disagree with their opinions. So I have people saying that to me, that, look, they're just trying to weed out extremists and to prevent more mass shooters. So on its face, bald-faced lie. People like Mike Harlow don't create mass shooters. People like Revenge of the Sis, you may not like what they do. They're comedy. They make fun of people all the time. I don't like half the stuff they do, but they're not creating mass shooters. Sinatra Says doesn't create mass shooters. None of these people create mass shooters. And beyond that, there's an important point here, which is that one of the things that does contribute to creating extremists, and yes, creating mass shooters, extremist mass shooters, is censorship. And this is something that you've written about, Carter, in your piece on Medium about Western civilization and culture, is when you have a culture that starts censoring voices who are speaking truth, but it's a truth that the mainstream doesn't like, you are going to necessarily drive people to the extremes, because what the extremists are telling them is that is always going to have a little bit of truth mixed in with it, with the crazy shit. So the extremists are saying, let's take white supremacists, for example. The extremists are saying they hate white people. White people are superior. We should rise up. We should defend ourselves. They're going to censor people because they hate white, whatever. That suddenly looks a little more appealing to some people who are in danger. If somebody's in danger of being pushed that way, and they see mass censorship, that seems a little bit more, oh, that person was right, that the censorship is going to continue. So you need mainstream voices who are not extremists. You need liberals like me. You need people who are calling this out, so that the only people calling out the censorship are not the crazy extremists where people go running there. I'm not sure if am I making sense, Carter, or?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And you look, if you end up in a society where the only people defending the values of Western civilization are also defending some horrible stuff, then you leave like, suddenly they look more credible. Like there needs to be people defending Western civilization and not crazy white supremacists or whatever. Like those people need to be, those are most of us. Most of us want to defend Western civilization. So, you know, this gets back to, I think, kind of what I was saying before, like speak up in your own circles, your friends and family and colleagues. This is in the news. They're going to talk about the YouTube thing. Fight back. Say, no, this is horrible. Steven Crowder doesn't deserve to be demonetized. Mike Harlow is a gay man who doesn't even, what does he talk about? He's like, was a Democrat. He's part of the walk away movement.
He's part of walk away. He's not even on the right. I mean, he's like center left.
Yeah. He doesn't deserve to be censored, demonetized, anything on YouTube. This is not about stopping actual Nazis or, you know, neo-Nazis. This is about shutting down speech that social justice leftists don't like. And that speech they label alt-right. But that's everything. Just they like labels everything that's not Marxist is fascism. The left, everything they don't like is hate speech. Hate speech,
everyone is a white
definition, is everything that's not leftist speech. That's hate speech.
Yeah. And reacquaint yourself with the definitions of words like harassment and incitement, because they engage in projection at an incredible level. So Carlos Maza, the guy who started all this, the Vox guy, the activist, he accused Steven Crowder of harassment. Steven Crowder was not harassing him. Steven Crowder was not telling people go attack Carlos Maza. Steven Crowder was not launching some targeted campaign of harassment. He was making fun of.
Fire him either. He didn't say like we should fire him.
Yeah,
right?
He didn't target him. He didn't say we should fire him. He didn't send people after him to attack him at all. All things that Carlos Maza has done to him.
Right.
All Steven Crowder did is what anyone in the media does. It's what late night hosts do every night on TV. It's what Stephen Colbert is, to make fun of this guy's video and counter his points with better points. Right. And that's all he did. That is not harassment.
And fair, he threw in a little ad hominem to try and make it funny, but that happens everywhere all the time.
Comedians do it all the time. Look, right. Stephen Colbert made the joke about Putin and Trump and
right.
You know, fellatio, right?
They mock being gay all the time if it supports a leftist cause.
Yeah. So I don't let them try to do that judo mind trick on you. They are harassing people and they are saying it's because they're being harassed, and that is a lie. Look at the facts of when you're talking to somebody, look at the facts and see, and don't just reflexively go with the side that's you know, anti-PC. Look at the facts of the situation. But Steven Crowder was not harassing him. He was harassing. Steven Crowder has not called for violence. He's not incited any violence. Carlos Maza has. He's incited it. He's blatantly called for it. They accuse others of doing all the things they do. And if you watch that and you learn how to spot it, you can call them out for it. But I look, everybody, one of our viewers, Laura, said, you know, she had nightmares last night about this, and I feel so bad because look, everyday people who have real lives and real jobs and are maybe just learning about some of this stuff, only get as involved in it as you can. It's not like we're saying everybody needs to go out and pick up the torch of free speech and start, you know, but just like
no, but I think I am saying you do need to argue in your social circle to the extent that you get away with it.
In your personal life,
if you're going to get fired for doing it, don't. But you know, right?
In your personal life, yes. Push back where you can as much as you can, and just, I mean, it's not even like going on the offensive. It's just basically saying, I'm going to grow backbone and I'm going to stand up for what I believe, and I'm not going to be bullied, and I'm not going to be cowed into silence because of my fear of being called bad names, or my fear of being called something that I know I'm not. Like my fear of being called a racist or a bigot or a white supremacist like Tucker Carlson, you know, whatever. You're not, don't let that fear control you, because it's a funny thing. If the only reason that fear works on you is because you're not a racist and you don't want to be thought that way. Racists don't care. Like,
actual white supremacists are like, yeah,
Yeah, white supremacists are that's part of being a supremacist, is you think you're the best. You're not afraid of, they're like, yeah, we are the best. Like, the only reason that fear works on you is because you're not. And so quit letting it work on you. You know what you are. Like, you're confident in what you are. Like, these people are beneath you if they call you that. Like, it's or they're engaging in behavior that is beneath you. And it just, don't let it affect you. I don't know. It's just, the other thing is, like, when you start to speak truth in your everyday life, like, it's one of those things that builds on itself. You feel better and more confident and less like a fraud. And then you're able to do it. You're able to speak a little more truth, and then you feel better. It's like, it's a positive feedback loop.
Yep. And it's easier and easier. And you may end up culling your friend circles a little bit, but you'll solidify. You'll find that some people, because I've had this happen, some people will pull you aside and be like, I can't believe you said that. I totally agree with you. I'm just afraid. And they're like, oh
yeah. A lot of people will do that.
And you'll gain some closer friendships, and you'll probably get ostracized by some people, but have some balls. Get ostracized by some people. Some people suck. Be ostracized from them. Like, okay.
If you're not offending some people, like,
you're doing
you're doing something wrong, because there are people out there dying to be offended. And if you're those people like Carlos Maza, if you're not offending people like Carlos Maza, you're doing something wrong. That means you're laying down as a carpet for people like him, just to not offend, to be pleasant, to allow them to push their ideology right over you.
You're murdering yourself in a philosophical sense. You're being invisible, right? If you're not offending someone, especially in today's culture, it's because you're invisible. So take that to your self-esteem bank.
Yeah.
You're invisible. Go argue with your spouse. That's how I want to end the show. Argue with your spouse. I gotta go.
We gotta go.
Any final things you gotta say?
No, I mean, okay, look, support the alternative media figures you like. Share this video, please. Like it, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We have a subscribe star. Like Carter said, we're trying to do some things, so we're not monetized yet, because we have to hit 1,000 subscribers first. So that's the most important thing you can do, subscribe. But to help us. But once we're trying to do things so we're not dependent on YouTube solely. And we have a subscribe star where you can donate. Any of these people who've been censored, like, subscribe to them. I don't even know who half these people are, and I probably don't agree with most of them, but I just started hitting subscribe on all of them last night because I was so furious. I'm like, you're not going to tell me that I can't listen to what I want to.
Right.
So we'll put a list up. I'll send you a list, Carter.
That's a great idea. Yeah, send me a list. We'll put it up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. This was a long one, but good one. So we'll see you later today for Deprogrammed, where we have Samuel Say, and it's going to be a really cool conversation. I think mostly this is you're driving the conversation, because it's about social justice and
Christianity.
So
yes, very excited.
Expertise. So
I've been wanting to have this conversation for a long time.
Yeah. It'll be good. All right. Thanks, everyone. Go argue with your spouse.